Lads and ladies, with the Hot Streak 5x multiplier promo kicking off this weekend, it's important to have in-season teams completed by the game week lock. I've already got my EPL setup sorted, you can check that out on my latest Sorare video, but today we're looking at the Liga and La Liga teams I have for the upcoming campaign. Now I'd like to consider these as budget teams, and I say budget as I did try to keep costs down here, but eventually each team did swell to about £70 of the King's finest, so they're actually more expensive than my main EPL team. However, I have 3 in-season teams for the EPL, so I could afford to spread the cost a bit thinner with more chances to hit the hot streak threshold. With Liga and La Liga, we are going all or nothing here, one team only, so a DMP in either team on game week 1 would be an absolute killer. But okay, let's start by looking at my Liga team, and anyone who follows the channel may know that I typically like to pair up my goalkeeper with a defender on the same team. You know, take advantage of a clean sheet from both players if they happen to get one, which would mean we're maximising our score and chances of moving up the leaderboards. That's what we want to do on the game, so Liga essentially sorted itself out with Juve being my only available classic goalkeeper here, but that's not something I have a problem with. I think Juve is a great goalkeeper, and he's recently joined Nice to be their #1 goalkeeper, and this left me with 2 realistic options in defence coming from that same team. We could go for Melvin Bard or Klaus. Now, any keen eyes and watchers will already see the card icon next to Melvin Bard's name, as that is who we went for, and that was for a few reasons, one of them being that he is roughly £5 to £10 cheaper than Klaus. When working on a budget, any cost-saving measures that can be taken to put that money back into the account and potentially buy another player is certainly helpful. And honestly, when looking at the two, I just didn't think Klaus had a complete edge over Melvin Bard to make him worth that extra money, which might seem strange to say considering Klaus has an extra 7 points over Bard on his last 40 total, but comparing them in general, and Klaus is much more of an all or nothing option. You know, if he slaps, and he can certainly hit those ceilings, but when it doesn't come off for him, the scores are quite low. And then looking at Melvin Bard recently, you know, he's still capable of pushing up with some higher scores, just across the board in general. He's a more stable scorer, I think. You know, those 50 to 65 games he's got going on here. And, you know, those points, those stable points that a player can get in the defensive position could be the points we need to ensure we hit that all-important week 1 hot streak. So is Bard the right choice over Klaus? I don't know. You could probably go either way, but we went with Bard, and that's the end of that, right? Don't fucking yell at me. We're committed to it. Midfield and forward, I then went with another club pairing, this time of Lille in the form of Andre and Carrera. The latter himself is a pretty simple pick in the fact he either gets a decisive as a forward or he doesn't. Jonathan David has now left Lille, so hopefully his departure means Carrera can step up and do the business, helped out by his midfield compatriot Benjamin Andre, a stalwart and experienced player of the game, which is reflected in some comfortable Sorare scores. Now, when all is said and done, this did result in Andre being my most expensive in-season purchase across any of my new teams, not just Liga and he cost over £25, so big pressure on his shoulders there, but he does chip in with goals and assists from time to time, which is certainly a bonus on top of an already very strong AA score, which does a lot of the heavy lifting here, and you love to see that from your main midfield player. Now, our second midfield player, aka the player taking up the final extra spot in this Liga team, aka Arthur Avon. That's certainly a long list of names he's got there. Now, this player is more of a risk and a purchase that kept us within the scope of our budget. If we check out his scores, you know, he's certainly a capable player. He gets some decent AA and bags of decisive here and there, but the risky part comes from the fact that Arthur Avon plays for Lorient FC, who were in Liga 2 last season. Now, they did end up winning the league very strongly. They're a good team, and Avon was a big part of that at such a young age, but there's no doubt that Liga is going to be a massive step up, so replicating those scores may be hard to come by. I imagine we'll see more defensive AA from him as opposed to passing and attacking AA that he may have got last season, but, you know, he's still a strong player in a strong team. I don't think FC Lorient will be in any trouble of going down. So here we go. This is what we've got. He makes up the extra spot here. The team is looking warm and cozy, ready for the weekend. Hopefully it can do the job, but let's move over and look at my La Liga team for the upcoming season. And here's where I'll tell you that I'm quite torn on who to go with in goal, looking at my classic La Liga goalkeepers, and of course the 2 standouts that immediately catch your eye are going to be Jan Oblak of Atletico Madrid and Unai Simon of Athletic Bilbao. And come game week 1, I could honestly find myself going with either of them in goal. Even Ramiro is a backup option if required, or, you know, if there's some fixture matchup carnage that we want to avoid. So it's definitely nice that I have the options here at least. I suppose for now we'll say I go with Unai Simon in net. And due to the uncertainty around who I wanted my main keeper to be, I didn't even pair up a goalkeeper and defensive option. Madness, I know. What am I thinking? The game has completely gone. I actually went out and grabbed Marcos Alonso of Celta Vigo instead for a little under £20. A pretty consistent scorer despite his older age. We're not too bothered about that, as in-season is literally only a season now. I don't really care about getting value in Classic after that, and Alonso himself is capable of pushing the boundaries a bit higher depending on if he can grab a decisive, or, you know, perhaps have a really strong AA scoring game, and I think that's what you want from your defender, which is, you know, typically you're going to go with a fullback here, as they seem to be the better options in terms of getting attacking output AA, as well as scooping up defensive and passing points where needed. And, you know, going with Alonso, I then accidentally happened to pair him up with a Celta Vigo teammate in Eliax Mariba. Not going to say that first name again. And not super keen on Mariba here as an option, but as I say, we're trying to keep the team in the confines of a budget, and he certainly fits that mold. His scores are just that of a budget player, really. They're okay. Sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit. We just have to hope with Mariba we can catch him on a strong game week scoring well in conjunction with his defensive partner Marcos Alonso. And another thing I've been looking at when buying cards for this game week 1 hot streak promo is the team's opening fixtures, and Celta Vigo here have quite favourable ones against Getafe followed by Mallorca, so I'm hoping a lot of value from these two players can come from capitalising on those fixtures early doors. We're almost there then. Up top, I've gone for Dani Rabah of Valencia. Honestly, don't really know much about him, but he's expected to start for the team, and last season he had a decent run of form, notching up quite a few decisives. And again, he is a player I looked at as a strong option due to Valencia's opening fixture. Sociedad opening game, not super easy by any stretch, but I had a stack of them last season and they were kind of fucking dog shit. So I'm happy with that fixture, followed by Osasuna and Getafe. So there's definitely potential for Dani Rabah to get some goals there. And, you know, with in-season competitions, a lot of that value does come early doors into the campaign, you know, when promos are running and when you're essentially maximizing the value of the cards that you've bought as you have the maximum amount of remaining fixtures to extract value from. I think that all makes sense, right? With the money and economics and such. So I don't want to pay too much attention to a team's fixture list at the start of the season, but it's certainly a factor and may play a part in players capturing an early stint of form. And finally, rounding out the team, Pablo Barrios of Atletico Madrid. Now, I wasn't too sure on Atletico Madrid's starting lineup this season, and perhaps was wondering if the new addition of Thiago Almada may steal the limelight from Barrios. But after a bit of research, Atletico fans speak very highly of Barrios and expect him to start and be an important player, so we've gambled that he can bang out some decisives in what is looking like a strong Atletico team. Now, his scores are actually quite decisive dependent now that I mentioned that when you have a look, so if he could start upping his AA a bit, that would be fantastic-arino. But as I say, I think Atletico are going to be a force this coming season, so I'm sure the decisives will be flowing. So this team, all in all, cost about £70 as well, same as the Liga Unliga team. So there is still some combined effort required from both of those to make their ROI back. But I have faith that all of the lads can start off the season strong this weekend. Good luck getting your final team sorted, lads and ladies, and I'll catch you next time because I love you.